Welcome to Broward County Library's Armchair Traveler program. Today, we'll visit the Maya ruins at both Tulum and Chichen Itza, Mexico. My name is Mike, and I've been to these places. I'll be your tour guide for this visit. The Maya were a rich, complex society that continues to fascinate. Their accomplishments are still evident today. It was they who first cultivated chocolate, chili peppers, vanilla, papayas, pineapple. They built causeways and reservoirs, created great works of sculpture and art, carved fantastic jade masks, and wove rich, colorful textiles. They also developed sophisticated mathematical systems, complex and accurate calendars, and perfectly proportioned buildings of immense size and beauty. Much of this while Europe remained in the Dark Ages. Before we depart, here's some things to know. The ruins don't have a ton of shade. Hat, sunglasses, and sunscreen recommended. We'll be bringing plenty of water to stay hydrated. We do not want to drink the local water. Be sure to wear comfortable shoes. You can wear sandals, but it's best to wear your hiking or tennis shoes. The pathways are a bit uneven, unpaved. Also, you'll have to keep an eye out for rocks and sticks. Bring mosquito repellent. Oh yes, let's stash our passports and cash in our money belts, under our shirts. And better have your camera. Lots of great sights and shots await us. Let's go. The Maya Empire was in Mexico and Central America. Can we place that on a map? From here, it's 1,000 miles by air. That's 2 hours flying JetBlue from Fort Lauderdale. Or 4,500 miles by car. We'll fly to Cancun and get a hotel to relax overnight before we start. Here are our travel plans. First, 80 miles from Cancun to Tulum and tour there for 2 hours or so. We'll be leaving very early, so breakfast by 5:30. Then, 65 miles inland from Tulum to the village of Valladolid for an afternoon visit and an overnight stay. Then, 28 miles from Valladolid to Chichen Itza for a 3-hour visit. But before we go, let's not confuse the Maya with the Aztec. It's a common error. These two cultures existed in close but separate areas. Check out the map. Green on the right in the Yucatan Peninsula, that's the Maya. Kind of orange on the left, that's Aztec. You can see they didn't really cross over much. And on top of that, the two civilizations were not there at the same time. The Aztec rose 400 years after the Maya civilization dissolved. Throughout the Americas, Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, many hundreds of Maya sites have been found and documented in at least some form by archaeological surveys and investigations, while the numbers of smaller, uninvestigated sites are so numerous that no complete archaeological list has yet been made. Tulum is our first stop. There it is on a map. This ancient walled city, perched on the cliff in Quintana Roo, overlooking the Caribbean Ocean in Mexico, is quite a sight in person. Tulum's original Mayan name, Zama, translates as place of the dawning sun. This is because it has a perfect view of the rising sun. It faces due east on a cliff. During the day, there are hundreds of tourists milling about. That's why we're arriving early, around 8 a.m., so we'll get a much more magical experience. We should visit for 2 hours to get a good feel for the area. This place is not that big compared to other Maya archaeological sites. Time to enter the city. This was a walled city. Let's go in through the old entrance. It looks easily defendable, doesn't it? Tulum was built to be a seaport fortress with steep ocean cliffs providing protection from the east and a large limestone wall enclosing the rest of the city. It was the primary location for the Mayas' extensive trade network, with both maritime and land routes converging here. Artifacts found in or near the site confirm contact with central Mexico and Central America. Archaeologists found copper rattles and rings from the Mexican highlands, flint and ceramics from the Yucatan, and jade from Guatemala. The largest structure here is El Castillo Pyramid. It's Tulum's main pyramid and was used as an ancient lighthouse. It overlooks the Caribbean Sea. 2 small windows at the top allowed sailors to navigate the bay at dusk. If a merchant boat captain could see daylight through both windows as they sailed in, they wouldn't crash into the reef hiding just below the water. Also on the cliff above the water is the Temple of the Wind. Its name comes from the roundness of its base, no corners, which has traditionally been associated with the god of wind, the Mayan deity Kukulkan. It's said that when hurricanes approached Tulum, a whistle sound was created from a specially designed hole at the top of this building, so when the Mayans could hear it, they knew they had to leave the city to seek protection inland. This is the Temple of the Descending God. Note the interesting carving in this temple? While the ancient Mayan had many gods whom they worshipped, there is one special to Tulum. The Descending God was important. The figure is all over the ruins in this city. The Descending God is the depiction of a man hanging upside down, head first to the ground, with his arms outstretched. His legs are above him, his feet tensed as if hanging just enough, but refusing to fall. So what does he represent? Unfortunately, given the efficient and complete conquest by the Spanish, we cannot be sure, but there are several theories. One is that he's god of rain or lightning, coming down from the heavens as an important part of agriculture and seasons. Another idea is that he may represent Venus. This planet the Maya associated with birth and renewal because Venus is spotted at sunrise and sunset. The nature of the orientation of the Temple of Tulum and its architecture facing the sun supports this. The fact that its inhabitants originally called the city Zama or Dawn does as well. Another surprise suggestion is the idea that the descending god is the god of bees. Bees played an important role in the trade of Tulum, and their products were a major export of the area. These bees were stingless bees, and the gathering of honey was part of a religious experience for priests only. Apart from delicious honey, bees were important for several day-to-day items such as candles, wax, seals, and casts for metal items. The idea that the bee comes from the sky down to earth fits into the descending god's downward nature. Another very important structure is the House of Alak-Winik. Each Mayan city-state was ruled by a Halak-Winik who served as high priest and ruler. It was a hereditary office which was passed on to the eldest child, normally a son. Tulum was a major religious center between the 11th and 16th centuries. The Temple of Frescoes in Tulum had an important social and religious importance. Its architectural elements, murals, decorations, sculptures, and general appearance point to a place of profound veneration. In the back room of the first floor, there are still remains of a mural painted on stucco in black, green, yellow, and mainly red, with representations of female and male deities, intertwined snakes, offerings dedicated to the gods, like flowers, fruits, and ears of corn. The House of Columns is the largest building of the archaeological site and was built on an L-shaped platform. It's also known as the Grand Palace, mainly because of its palace-type building, with 2 rooms and 2 others attached to its west side. The main entrance is located to the south and is formed by 4 columns. The interior has 6 columns that used to support the roof of the main room. What was it? There are many unanswerable questions lost to the forgetfulness of time. Let's head over now to our afternoon tour and overnight at Valladolid. How about some excellent Mexican food and maybe a swim? Valladolid is off the beaten path, so it offers an opportunity to experience authentic Maya culture and history that you just candidly can't find very easily in the heavily touristed beach towns. Chichen Itza is our next stop. Another early start to avoid all those other tourists. It was built starting sometime in the 5th century, but Chichen Itza became a significant center of political and economic activity in the Mayan culture by roughly the year 600. By then, it was already one of the largest cities in the Mayan world. It covered nearly 2 square miles with densely packed commercial, residential, and other structures made of stone. Chichen Itza even had its own suburbs, with smaller homes occupying the outskirts of the city. El Castillo looms at the center of Chichen Itza. It's a 79-foot pyramid of stone. The structure embodies Mayan myth along with natural astronomical cycles. One phenomena that El Castillo is famous for occurs twice each year at the spring and fall equinox. In fact, the effect is viewable for a week before and a week after each equinox. As the equinox sun sets, a play of light and shadow creates the appearance of a snake that gradually undulates down the stairway of the pyramid. This diamond-backed snake is composed of 7 or so triangular shadows cast by the stepped terraces of the pyramid. The sinking sun seems to give life to the sinuous shadows, which makes a decidedly snaky pattern on the way down the stairs. Can you see it? This structure is also known as the Pyramid of Kukulkan. The god Kukulkan was a feathered serpent. Note the snake's head at the bottom. El Caracol seems to be carefully aligned with the motions of Venus. Venus had tremendous significance for the Maya. We learned this at Tulum. This bright planet was considered the sun's twin and a war god. Maya leaders used the changing position of Venus to plan appropriate times for raids and battles. Temple of the Warriors. Hundreds of columns surround a huge temple structure. The square columns once held up some of the roofs. These columns are carved on all 4 sides with figures of warriors wearing feathers. The Great Ball Court. This is the largest known ancient sports field in Central America. At 182 yards long and 75 yards wide, each end has a raised temple area. No Maya text remains to explain the rules of this game, but it is known that among Maya kings and nobles, the ball game had ritual significance and was associated with warfare. The depiction of a decapitated player in the ball court at Chichen Itza suggests that in some competitions, players lost their lives. Alongside the Great Ball Court is the Temple of Skulls. One of those gruesome buildings in Chichen Itza is a low platform covered on all sides by rows of carved skulls. The heads of sacrificial victims were displayed here, together with those of players who lost a ball game. The sacred cenote. A cenote is an underground lake or river. This one measures 198 feet in diameter and is where royalty gave gifts to the gods. Many fantastic treasures have been found there: rings, necklaces, gold, and jade objects, as well as the bones of young women that were thrown into the water as an offering to Shak, the Maya rain god. Throughout Chichen Itza are 14 reclining stone figures grasping plate-like receptacles called shakmul. The purpose of the shakmul was generally as a place for sacrificial offerings to the gods. These offerings could consist of anything, from foodstuffs like tamales or tortillas, to colorful feathers, tobacco, or flowers, or also to human hearts. The Casa Colorada, which is Spanish for red house, is one of the best preserved buildings at Chichen Itza. In one chamber, there are extensive carved hieroglyphs that mention rulers of Chichen Itza and possibly of the nearby city of Ekbalam. This is the nunnery. It bears the image and long-nosed masks of Chalk, the rain god, and wits representing hills and mountains. The Spanish named this structure the nunnery because it resembled convents in Spain. Archaeologists doubt they were used for this purpose. More likely, it was palaces for the wealthy or occupied by the Mayan council. Named La Iglesia, the church, by the Spanish, probably because it was located next to the nunnery, this temple is one of the oldest buildings at Chichen Itza. Masks of chalk decorate 2 upper stories. Among the crowd of chalks, there are also an armadillo, a crab, a snail, and a tortoise. These represent the Maya gods called Baja, whose job it was to hold up the sky. From the late 8th through the end of the 9th century, something unknown happened to shake the Maya civilization to its foundations. One by one, the classic cities in the southern lowlands were abandoned, and by AD 900, Maya civilization in that region had completely collapsed. In the highlands of the Yucatan, a few Maya cities, like Chichen Itza, continued to flourish for some years longer. But by the time the Spanish invaders arrived, most Maya were living in agricultural villages, the great cities buried under a layer of rainforest green. What ended the Maya civilization? The 3 most popular theories: overuse of the land, endemic warfare, and drought. And in the end, the Spanish introduced disease. Are there more Mayan ruined cities lost in this jungle? And if there are, how would you find them? A recent innovation in ancient site discovery is the airborne application of a remote sensing technique called light detection and ranging, or LIDAR, to create a model of the terrain that's hidden by the trees in the forested areas. LIDAR is changing archaeological study of Maya. It's increasing the speed and scale of discovery and reshaping our understanding of the antiquity of monumental scale landscape alteration. From the air, you can see a few buildings buried in the trees. This is the city of Tikal. A LIDAR survey cuts through the trees. You can see there's so much more under there: roads, buildings, farms, defense fortifications. Under the trees. Described as magic by some archaeologists, LIDAR unveils archaeological finds almost invisible to the naked eye, especially in the tropics. Researchers have found more than 60,000 hidden Maya ruins in Guatemala in a major archaeological breakthrough. Tulum and Chichen Itza may be 2 of the most famous Maya cities today, but who knows what will be discovered when archaeologists finally get to the more remote jungle, to LIDAR-revealed sites. I hope you've enjoyed our short visit to these 2 Maya cities and learned a little bit about LIDAR. And note that the Broward County Library System has many books and DVDs on these and many other Mexican and Central American sites. Not just the sites, but also on how they were discovered, their culture and mystical beliefs, and how they dissolved back into the jungle. Come in and check us out. My name is Mike, and I'm a library specialist and your host at the West Regional Library.